Let's bow our heads today. Precious Father, we come to you, Lord, and you've seen our situation here, Lord, today, that we say a word of prayer to you today for understanding, and God, that will bring light to our minds and hearts today. And we ask you to be with us, Lord, that things that we share in the spirit realm and in our presence, we ask for your blessing to be with us today. We appreciate you, Lord. Amen.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming. My name is Frank Blackcloud. I'm a spokesman for the Committee for Understanding and Respect. I'd like to welcome you all to Spirit Lake Nation on this honorable day. I'd like to introduce some people before we get going. Starting at my right, Ms. Yvonne Dubois, the Crow Hill District Representative. Mr. Darwin Brown, he's the Mission District Rep. Ms. Clarice Brownshield, Fort Totten Rep. Joel Red Fox, Wood Lake Rep. and of course our honorable chairman, Mr. Roger Yankton. I'd also like to acknowledge some individuals that came up from Standing Rock, and I'd like to thank them for coming up here and making the trip. Mr. Anton American Horse, Mr. Tony White Mountain, Mr. Joe White Mountain, and a man that needs no introduction, Mr. Archie Fullbear. Today, I'd like to also introduce Mr. Reed Soderstrom, one of our legal attorneys, Stephen Bam, and Gordon Caldas, please. So, with no further ado, Sir Reed Soderstrom, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Honorable Tribal Council, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Reed Soderstrom, and I'm one of the attorneys for the Spirit Lake Tribe of Indians, by and through its Committee of Understanding and Respect, and Archie Fullbear individually, and as representative of more than 1,004 petitioners of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. This morning we filed a lawsuit against the National Collegiate Athletic Association in direct response to their attempt to take away and prevent the North Dakota Sioux Indians from giving their name forever to the University of North Dakota. In 2009, the Spirit Lake Tribe voted overwhelmingly to allow the University of North Dakota to continue using the name Fighting Sioux. In 1969, in a sacred and religious spiritual ceremony, the tribal leaders of the Standing Rock Tribe granted perpetual use of the name Fighting Sioux to the University of North Dakota. However, the NCAA has unilaterally decided that the name Fighting Sioux is derogatory to the very people who feel honored by the name, the North Dakota Sioux tribes. The NCAA has declared, without input from the Dakota Sioux, that UND will be prevented from hosting any postseason sporting events, and is encouraging other universities to boycott UND if the university does not remove the name Fighting Sioux and the accompanying logo honoring the traditions and customs of the proud Dakota Sioux people. These actions are a violation of the religious and First Amendment rights of the Dakota Sioux tribes and show the NCAA believes it knows the interests of the North Dakota Sioux community better than the Sioux people themselves. Though the NCAA has decided Fighting Sioux is derogatory, the NCAA supports the University of Illinois' use of the name Fighting Illini and the use by Florida State University of the name Seminoles, along with the Seminole mascot, someone dressed in Native American attire who rides into the Florida State Stadium on a horse and throws a flaming spear before every home football game. The NCAA claims these are not derogatory depictions because the Illini people and the Seminole people approve of the use of the name and mascot. Inexplicably, the NCAA fails to accept the tribal vote and the sacred religious ceremony as endorsements of the name Fighting Sioux by the North Dakota Sioux Nation. The NCAA's actions violate Native American civil rights, equal protection rights, and religious rights. Neither party has taken this step lightly. Indeed, it could possibly have been avoided had the NCAA only listened to the North Dakota Sioux people and recognized that the use of the Fighting Sioux name and likeness by UND for the past 80 years has been honorable and in keeping with Dakota Sioux culture and traditions. It is the NCAA who has dragged this matter out. They have had several opportunities since 2005 to realize their policy was in error and either rescind it or grant UND an exception. The NCAA chose not to and left the Dakota Sioux people no choice but to bring this legal action against them. With that said, Mr. John Chaskey is going to give a statement. Archie Fullbear will follow, and Attorney Gordon Caldas will also give a statement, and thereafter we'll attempt to answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. Good morning. My name is John Chaskey. I'm a member of the Spirit Lake Sioux Tribe. I'm honored to speak on behalf of the Spirit Lake majority who are in support of the UND Fighting Sioux. We take great pride in our Sioux culture and heritage. We have suffered and persevered the hard times. This has made us a strong people. I am confident that the majority of the North Dakota citizens will be happy to hear today that the Spirit Lake Sioux are making a stand against the NCAA to defend the Fighting Sioux name. We are defending our Dakota honor and pride that has been extended to the University of North Dakota Fighting Sioux. UND has represented the Sioux name in a respectful and honorable manner for 80 years now. 42 years ago, the Standing Rock Sioux ceremoniously gave UND permission to use the Sioux name. This name-giving ceremony was conducted by Mr. Edward Loon, a spiritual leader, who basically helped open the doors to educational opportunities for Native Americans at UND. The NCAA policies concerning colleges who use Native American names and imagery has not been consistently applied, and this has been pointed out to them. Yet they insist on masquerading as a collegiate conglomerate who is protecting the best interests of the Sioux people in the case of the Fighting Sioux. I am confident the North Dakotans will not allow the NCAA to erase 80 years of Fighting Sioux tradition at UND. They cannot destroy the positive imagery that instills pride and honor in natives and non-natives alike. To insist that our name and imagery is hostile and abusive is a mockery to collegiate sports. Our Dakota ceremonies are of a serious, spiritual, sacred nature, and they are conducted in the presence of the pipe and the Creator. Positive thought and prayer are essential prior to performing a ceremony. It is a sacred act that is irreversible. Names are not given so that they can be changed tomorrow on someone's whim. Times may change, but our Dakota traditions remain intact. In Dakota spiritual circles, to disrespect the sacred pipe may bring serious repercussions. When a person performs a ceremony with sincerity from the heart, their intentions cannot be changed. To discuss a ceremony in a negative way is disrespectful of the pipe and the Creator. These are the respectful teachings of our Sioux pipe traditions. The Standing Rock delegation and Mr. Loon are being disrespected for their positive efforts to achieve a better life for their people. Their vision has been realized. Many of the UND Sioux graduates have become great leaders in their communities. UND is innocent of any violations of the NCAA's policies. The public is becoming more aware that the NCAA has violated their own policies and settlement agreement concerning the Fighting Sioux. From all appearances, the NCAA has allowed their ignorance and their arrogance to overshadow their common sense in regards to this issue. So today, I ask the citizens of North Dakota to stand proudly with the Sioux people of Spirit Lake to defend the pride and honor of the UND Fighting Sioux. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to my friends and relatives of Spirit Lake. Good morning to the Tribal Council, Chairman Yankton. My name is Archie D. Fullbear. I'm an enrolled member of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. For years, the United States government developed policies to do away with many Indian nations. These policies were attempted to assimilate our people into general society. I'm proud to say that I'm a survivor of the relocation plan. I'm a survivor of the government's policies, and I continue to fight for what I believe in. Over 140 years ago, our ancestors had the foresight and seen the need to protect our future and our way of life, our culture, our values. Within the last 42 years, another tribal leader had a similar foresight and vision. He sent a delegation to UND to formally give UND the right to use the name Fighting Sioux. The name was given to one of our sacred ceremonies, one of the ceremonies that you just don't disregard, one of the ceremonies that Tribal Council doesn't have an authority over. Our Tribal Constitution doesn't give Tribal Council the right to disregard a naming ceremony. or any other ceremony. Our government, because the name was given through the ceremony, we expected our tribal government to respect and honor that ceremony, but that hasn't happened. We have 1,004 members from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe who signed a petition asking and demanding to have a referendum vote on the name and logo issue. That hasn't happened. We have communities who have passed resolutions asking the tribal council to go forward with the referendum vote. That's been disregarded. Oh boy, the tribal council really doesn't have a say in our unwritten tribal laws and customs. But they put themselves in the forefront by denying the people their rights to be heard. Our tribal constitution needs to be upheld and the people's rights protected in all nations. But this is not happening. In our continued efforts to have our people, our ceremonies recognized, we want our people of Standing Rock to be recognized as having the same civil rights as all people of this great nation. We too have veterans, just like other nations, who have paid the ultimate price to protect those rights. But yet, the NCAA has refused to honor them. The NCAA has refused to Sioux people the right to sit at the same negotiating table. The NCAA is also refusing to recognize Spirit Lakes Nation's vote. Our communities have passed resolutions. Our people ask for a vote, but our government has disregarded them. Being ignorant to the law will no longer be tolerated. In representing our community, in representing our committee from Standing Rock, we have joined with the Spirit Lake Nation's Committee for Respect and Understanding to move forward, to take the action necessary to have our ancestors and tribal leaders who have committed and gave a name out of respect and out of honor to our people. We will continue to support the efforts to move forward, and we hope that this moves further into the future for the children that are still yet to come. I want to thank you for your time. Thank Chairman Yankton and the council. Thank you.
Officers, members, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Gordon Caldas. I've been an attorney in Grand Forks for many years. And when I first heard about this NCAA policy, I read it, and what it talked about is that American Indian names and logos, and these are proper names. The Sioux were our first citizens in this United States, and the logos. And it was difficult for me to look at those. Incidentally, they're in front of that profile. A male Sioux American Indian. And incidentally, I'd seen that portrait in oil painting in the one of the UND buildings, done by a distinguished Indian artist. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing from this designation by the NCAA that these were hostile and abusive. Well, as an attorney, I had an attorney's curiosity. And you know, our judicial system is a basic bedrock of the United States. And these things, perhaps, have been in the courts. Because most things, where there are issues such as this, that the proper place for those are in the courts and court decisions, because they're followed on infinitum and form the basis for future cases. So my curiosity made me do some research. And lo and behold, I found a number of cases in the United States that were exactly in point with what we're talking about. In fact, the first thing that occurred to me was, now the University of North Dakota has a copyright of its logo, the one that you see here, the male American Indian with the feathers. And I looked at the matter of copyright. Well, a copyright properly certified through the Copyright Department in Washington, D.C., approves those. And I knew, just from hearsay, that copyright had been certified and had been in existence for some time. Well, I found a copy of the copyright. I read a little bit about copyrights, and I found that a certified copyright is protected under federal law for some 70 years. And if anyone attempts to invade that right, it's subject to a petition in federal court for protection. Well, didn't anyone ever think or look up the fact that here, UND, this was called hostile and abusive, this copyright. And no one paid any attention to the fact that it had a protected logo. So that we had that law. Well, I knew when you read the maps and look over many materials, in the United States, Indian names are one of the most common uses that we have. Half of our states, you come from Indian names. And when it is in common usage, the federal law says that common usage means they're in the public domain. Anyone can use them. Well, the Sioux name is in common usage and is in public domain and can be used by anyone, including UND. That was ignored by the NCAA. Now, was that the end of it? Was there anything more? Well, in 3 states in the United States, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, and Illinois, had exact cases. In fact, the Wisconsin logo is a duplicate of the Sioux logo. That had gone through the courts in Wisconsin, along with the fact that they used the Indian name, and all of these being associated with athletics, just as UND is. Well, in that case, it was held that that logo and that name was not hostile and abusive, just what we're talking about with this case. Did it end there? No. Illinois, the same picture. And the courts held in that case, and in this instance in Illinois, they were talking about fighting Illini, fighting Sioux. And the courts held that was not hostile and abusive. And in those two cases, neither one constituted and were found to be hostile and abusive environment. Massachusetts was the third, and you had the same pattern. Your Indian, the logos, and associated with athletics, and that was also called not hostile and abusive. So we have the copyright, we have the case law, we have the public domain. And this was brought to the attention of the NCAA, never acknowledged, never recognized. And they continue the policy. These things were brought to the attention of the NCAA years ago. And I was one of those that furnished it to them. Now, who has jurisdiction over universities and colleges in the United States? The U.S. Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights. Now, this department, and as to discrimination and the delivery of federal funds to those various institutions. Now, the U.S. Department of Education had received a petition talking about and alleging UND had this hostile and abusive environment. They sent on the quiet, we did not know it at the time, made an inspection by a number of people on the campus of the University of North Dakota, looking as to discrimination. The U.S. Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, made no sanctions against the University of North Dakota. They found no hostile environment. They did not term fighting Sioux hostile or abusive. Now, the North Dakota legislation, as I think most of you know, at the last session, had a bill asking that for a statute that would make it mandatory to permit, this was to the Board of Higher Education and the president of the college, which made it mandatory for them to use, mandatory to use, by the University of North Dakota in association with athletics. So we now have on the statute, and it'll remain there until such time as it could be repealed, but who says that it is going to be repealed? No one knows. No one knows. But you have a legislature now who has accepted the fact that there is no hostile and abuse on the name Fighting Sioux or the logo. And that's the law today. Now, so here I found, and which I've been telling you about, that all of the law, and incidentally, for these number of years, there has been no one that has posed anything in opposition on a legal basis. No decided cases, no favorable statutes. They're all one-way approval of the Fighting Sioux name and logo. Thank you.
We can attempt to answer some questions at this time from media only.
This likely won't be the first and last time the NCAA is sued. They have been sued before. In one of those cases, the Supreme Court ruled they're a private organization, and if you don't want to belong to this organization, you don't have to.
I don't believe that the NCAA has ever been sued by a Sioux nation, a sovereign Sioux nation before. This is the first time that I'm aware of. And the NCAA has imposed its will upon this state, and they've given ultimate decision-making authority to two tribes that were never part of any agreement, never brought to the table to negotiate, never signed off on the settlement agreement, and for that reason, these two tribes were indispensable parties, making that settlement agreement void on its face. Any other questions from media? Yes, sir. Suit was filed in Federal District Court in Fargo, North Dakota this morning as we began the press conference.
It's filed by who?
It was filed by I signed off on the pleadings, the Pringle and Herrickstead law firm from Minot, representing the Spirit Lake Nation, Archie Foolbear individually, the Committee for Understanding and Respect.
So as far as the Standing Rock tribe, it's just Archie Foolbear as an individual.
The caption of the suit is the Spirit Lake, and I have the lawsuit here too, and if you care to look at SaveTheFightingSioux.com, the highlights will be there. And the caption is the Spirit Lake Sioux Tribe of Indians, by and through its Committee of Understanding and Respect, and Archie Foolbear individually, and as representative of the more than 1,004 petitioners of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe versus the National Collegiate Athletic Association.
So the financial power for this lawsuit, the Spirit Lake tribe is behind this?
All of the attorneys, it's a grassroots effort. We volunteered our time. It's a volunteer organization. You can contribute. The money is being used to educate the public about our cause, but the attorneys are volunteer. Any other questions?
Would it make any difference in your mind? The special session is next week. If they go ahead and repeal the Fighting Sioux law, does that make any difference to you?
We're asking them not to. We're asking the whole state of North Dakota to get behind us, get behind this grassroots effort. Let us seek justice, and we have more than a chance here. This is a case that we believe we can win. Any other questions?
I got a question if you're willing to answer.
If you're media, I'll take it. If you're not media, I'll be happy to meet with you after this press conference.
Said that this is coming from the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, that they're the one that authorized Grand Forks to use the name, but yet Spirit Lake is the one that's heading up this.
Next question from the media, please. I'll be happy to talk to you after.
Come on, media. Ask some questions. You guys are here. Ask the questions that need to be asked.
How do you square that? You've got Archie and his group and their 1,004 signatures, but the tribal council, the recognized government of Standing Rock, has taken another position.
We have a 12-count lawsuit, and including indispensable parties that I've mentioned, we have a count of a breach of contract. First of all, there was no void settlement agreement. If there was, in fact, an agreement, then the NCAA breached it because in the policy, in the settlement agreement, they said that there would be contributions from the two tribes dictating, my words, not the exact settlement agreement language, but contributions from the two tribes on how the name would be utilized by UND. So if there was a valid settlement agreement, which we say there wasn't, they breached it. In addition to that, there's been allegations in our lawsuit of discrimination, collusion, conspiracy by the NCAA and certain other members that have deliberately prevented the Sioux name from being used by UND. In addition to that, we've sued under the Indian Religious Freedom, violation of the Indian Religious Freedom Act. Time and time again, the tribe, Spirit Lake, the Committee for Understanding and Respect has told the NCAA about this 1969 ceremony from Standing Rock, and it's been ignored repeatedly. No one's paid attention to it, and that's in direct violation of the Indian Religious Freedom Act, and that's a count in our complaint as well.
What sort of a timetable do you see the lawsuit proceeding on?
If you talk to the clerk of federal court, they're not scheduling anything until into 2013. That's as soon as we would ever get a trial date. There will be various motions. There will be a lot of review, I'm sure, of this complaint. It has not yet been served, but this will not be a quick and easy out, I don't expect.
Why are you doing this now instead of a few years ago, since it's going to take so long to get?
The Committee for Understanding and Respect has worked tirelessly since this settlement agreement was announced. For example, the Committee for Understanding and Respect was at UND in 2008 to ask how they could help. The committee went in the spring of 2008 to address the issue. They had the flag ceremony in 2008 at the Ralph Engelstad Arena. The committee got a petition signed in 2008, and I'm talking about Spirit Lake now. March of 2009, they got the petition, they got the vote in 2009, they've testified to the state board in 2009, they've gone to court before at the state level. This is a federal suit, and it was a different issue. And they have written letters to the NCAA time and time again. They were at the state legislative session this winter. It's not like anyone has not been doing anything. They've been working tirelessly, and this is the logical next step.
Not to speak for them, but I almost know what they're going to say when we ask UND. They say, well, we can't wait this long. We're going to wreck our athletic program because the NCAA is putting sanctions against them. Other schools aren't scheduling games with them. Do you think UNT would be out of line moving ahead with what they have to move ahead with in regards with the NCAA?
We believe that the leaders of North Dakota have tried to do what's best in their own mind. However, in our lawsuit, we've asked for an immediate injunction against the NCAA on its policy. Number two, there's been a lot of innuendo and implications about how this is going to affect the university. There is no substantiated written document establishing that. It's done by innuendo, it's done by fear, and quite frankly, it's, in our opinion, not true.
How soon do you think an actual injunction? Is that something the judge can rule on in a month or two?
Yes. Yes, I believe that can go to the court, to the judge, and for a potential order much earlier than the finality of the suit itself.
Could you address to what extent the Spirit Lake Nation is involved in the lawsuit?
Spirit Lake Nation's involvement, I would, Mr. Cheske, would you feel comfortable answering that one? They're here. As far as what I can see, the support is overwhelming. They're here. They are involved. But I would defer to...
What was the question again?
To what extent is the Spirit Lake Nation involved in the lawsuit?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's right comes from the tribe, the people here. It started with the vote that was taken in 2009. And with the tribal council giving us their blessing, the Committee for Understanding and Respect. So we're behind it all the way. The people who have supported that name.
Not giving my support, though.
You didn't agree to go to a lawsuit there, guys.
Next.
Is this fight between UND and NCAA? It's not our fight. We have more pressing issues here as a tribe. We get to publicly on.
Next question from the media, please. We'll be happy to talk to anybody afterwards. Any other questions? And we thank you all for coming. Mr. Haga?
Are you concerned
Give
about,
us a one-liner, you give everybody else a whole page.
are you concerned about the obvious division among the people of the Spirit Lake Nation?
We got 500 people on the petition too, so we could always turn that in and we'll ask for another referendum vote.
The
You know, after when I practiced in Standing Rock and I attempted to bring a petition on behalf of 1,000 petitioners, they didn't see democracy here. So I welcome the catcalls from the back from just a few people. And for those that are in this room, I've heard from basically 3 people that are being loud. And that's kind of, I think, for the whole state of North Dakota to hear. There are a few loud people. And this is democracy. Unfortunately, the people of Standing Rock were deliberately and intentionally prevented from voting. Nope. Next question from the media, please. If you would, please hold your comments for a legitimate question from the media. Yes, sir.
Archie, could I ask you, you recently lost an election to the Standing Rock Tribal Council. Was the logo an issue in that particular campaign?
I'm not going to brag about losing. The vote wasn't based on a campaign of the effort to save the name. No. No candidates went around and advocated for it, and myself included. Nobody did. I hear all the scuttlebutt that I lost because I support the name. I lost because there was a full-hearted effort by the South Dakota side of the reservation to support just their candidates. And I can openly say that that's the good turnout in South Dakota. I lost in the North Dakota side of the vote. I came in 4th place overall out of the 6 places that were looked at. So the name wasn't an issue to us, no. And one other part of the question that was asked, we were told by our vice chairman to take this to court. We tried to get our council to recognize our people. We tried to get our council to let the people have a vote and a say. And in meeting with the chairman and the vice chairman's statement was take it to court. So we're here.
Have you heard the voice of the people who walk the campus and graduated there and their experiences? And you'll find out how honorable it is.
Next question from the media, please.
What do you say to the people from Spirit Lake, Standing Rock, who have been at UND, students there, and who have talked about what they consider to be a negative impact of the Fighting Sioux nickname and logo?
Negative impact of the Fighting Sioux nickname and logo. Is there someone else that would? Archie, would you?
Thank you again. I sat on our Standing Rock Sioux Tribes Tribal Council. I sat on the Judicial Committee. We had several communities pass motions that the Judicial Committee negotiated with UND. Mr. Joe White Mountain sits back here. He was a member of our Judicial Committee. He sat on our Tribal Council. We traveled to UND and we set up meetings with students to hear all the negative that we were being told. And we sat and listened for two and a half hours to students that we found out in the meeting weren't Sioux students. They weren't Sioux Indians. We had no choice but to set up another meeting asking for students on the campus who are having all these horrendous problems to come forward. We wanted to make a decision whether to discontinue it or whatever needed to be done. And again, that meeting, we had staff members, we had individuals who had their opinion that were employed there, reiterating studies that they had done, that they found, but we wanted to hear it from the students. In one particular meeting, a young lady from Pine Ridge stood up and stated that she was a full-blood member of the Oglala Nation. She and her husband were students there for 2.5 years, and they didn't experience a thing. Now you look at those two, they looked Indian to me. In comparison to some people who have the coloration that doesn't appear to be native or the hair color that doesn't appear to be native. And we listen to those people. And we have to state openly, and I have to state openly, that when I went around asking these questions, I wanted to see things in the light that people were presenting it. When I sat on council, I was told it was hostile, it's abusive, it's a negative thing to Native people. And then I had high school students that I was coaching were asking, why are people saying that? I'm a Standing Rock warrior. That's not hostile and abusive. I coached in Solon. Solon High School is the Solon Sioux. They took that name on in 1969, the same year UND took on the name Fighting Sioux. When these students want to step forward and ask me questions as an adult and as a tribal council member, why are people saying these things? UND doesn't create prejudice. That's coming from your freshmen and sophomores in high school. These are kids that go around in Bismarck and Mandan, and they're confronted with prejudice. And they understand and they know that the name isn't creating that. And so we have no choice as council members to try to go back, and we're digging. I mean, I got to hand it to you. We dug hard and deep to try to find something negative that would be showing that this is really going on up there. I visited with a lady by the name of, well, she's deceased now, but visited with her at length. She lived there for 23 years, not experiencing this issue. I talked to the student from Cheyenne River who grew up in Standing Rock. He's up there 8 years now, working on his doctorate. He's told me he hasn't experienced a thing. And he looks more native, like I said, than some of the people who don't have the complexion or the hair color as our native people do. And when I talk to these students, and I think Joe can back me on that, is that these students say, we're there for an education. We're not here to fight over this name. We're not here to fight or give an opinion on it. I signed up because I want an education. And how much of a distraction is this when you got people running around saying how bad or how terrible or how negative it is when they're not seeing it? Myself, I have a son who's there, who just started a year and a half ago, and he's working on his degrees. He's got 2 degrees he's working on. And come spring, I'm hoping that he has his double major and be able to go on to law school. My youngest daughter finished at Minot State. She wants to go to law school. Now, are we going to turn around, oh, don't go there because it's hostile and abusive? I served in the United States military, and I'd suffered more prejudice in that arena than anywhere else. But I never let that get me down. When I attended the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center at Glencoe, Georgia for 16 and a half weeks, I got put through the ringer there, but I never let that put me down. So I guess you might want to say I have a fighting spirit to try to keep the recognition of who we are. And we can't let the defeat of this name by NCAA put a mark on all our people, because it does affect all of us. It affects all of our Sioux people across the United States, not just Spirit Lake, not just Standing Rock. And when you go places like Denver, when you have a Shoshone Bannock walk up and say, hey, I like that, Fighting Sioux. When I was in the military, they asked me, what kind of Indian are you? I'm a Sioux Indian. Oh, you guys are the bad guys. You guys bumped Custer off. You know, those are the things that are out there that the people understand and see. And when we stand up in a crowd, whether it's in D.C. legislature, and we're saying we're from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, that's who we are. You know, so to answer your question, we have dug far and we've dug deep to try to find all this negative. We asked the chief of police, we asked the city to bring forward documentation showing that this is what happened to so-and-so. This is what happened to so-and-so on a certain day and a time. We haven't gotten it. We haven't gotten it. So I hope that answers part of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming, and we'll be happy to meet with you after. One more question?
Just wanted to clarify, what specifically was the request for an injunction asking for?
You will see it on SaveTheFightingSioux.com. It's in our prayer for relief. And we've asked for an immediate injunction prohibiting the NCAA from taking any actions or implementing any policies against UND or its use of the Sioux or Fighting Sioux names, for an immediate injunction enjoining the NCAA to take such actions as the court deems appropriate to honor and implement the resolutions and requests of the plaintiffs. Thank you again for coming.